Often when people come in looking for ideas for landscapes, we try to introduce year-round color and texture, and evergreens make a nice addition to most landscapes. Unfortunately, most people think evergreens are huge and will take up too much space due to ideas from windbreaks. In the case of the Korean fir, this is often thought of as a small garden conifer. It gets about 25-30 foot tall in time, and takes quite a while to do that, by about 12 to 15 foot wide. The nice attributes of it are the undersides of the needles are white banded, so it gives a little bit of a bicoloring with the green on top and silver undersides. First year cones are purple and then they mature to brown. So the Korean fir is an excellent addition to a small garden landscape. The Korean pine is another one of those evergreens that doesn't get extremely large in the landscape. The pine is longer needled than the fir. Both are native to Korea, but do very well here. Has a little bit of an open habit. As you can see, a little bit of a layered look, which gives another characteristic to the landscape. Very hardy for this area. We tend to think this as a zone 4 plant, and works very well when adding around the house or out in a landscape bed. The lacebark pine, once fairly hard to find in the industry, is now quite readily available, and its characteristic that we really like to use it for is the patchy bark, somewhat like a sycamore tree. Has different shades of tan and green and gray, and peels slightly, so very interesting bark. It's also often grown as a multi-stem tree, so you'll see several trunks coming out, kind of crowning out. Several evergreens that get quite large have also been found as sports to grow in a weeping or a dwarf form. The weeping Norway spruce is fairly common, but what a lot of people don't realize is you can kind of keep them at about any height you want to. This one was considered a low graft, where it was trained up and then just kept from growing any higher than 3 foot. So if any leaders tend to shoot up, we just keep them off, so that way it does more of the weeping form or a ground cover form. Often you'll see them staked up to about 5 or 6 foot, and they do the same thing, then just hang over from there. So the weeping Norway spruce makes a beautiful green ground cover in the place of a lot of perennials as well. Another weeping form of a large evergreen would be the weeping white pine. They can also be trained about whatever height you want to. I've seen them grown as a ground cover or where they've been trained up to about 15 to 20 foot. Either case, they're going to keep weeping down unless they form a sport that shoots straight up. They're great for around patios and decks or off of a corner of a house, front entryway, anywhere you want a conversation piece. Also noted for decorative cones that are used for wreaths and garlands and even sticking in Christmas trees during the holidays. The Scotch pine over the last 5 or 6 years has kind of gotten a bad name due to the wilt issues we're dealing with now. But if you still like the texture and the look of the Scotch pine, you can find one out there that we still are using. This is the creeping Scotch pine. We use it as a ground cover. Hard to say if it's going to be affected by the wilt. I don't believe it will, but time will tell. But at least it isn't an enormous tree to end up having to take out. Just use it as a ground cover, just like you would with a creeping juniper, and trim it as needed. So finally, on if anyone does come into the store, or if you are working at designing a landscape and you're wanting some ideas, try to keep evergreens in mind. It brings another texture to the landscape, something to see for all seasons. And quite often the little bit taller evergreens are great for bird roosting and habitat. We tend to see nests in about all the evergreen trees around the nursery here.